What's going on, everybody? Today, as always, I'd like to talk to you guys. And what I want to talk to you guys about is a conversation I had last night with a woman through DMs about your thoughts and what role does your thoughts play in influencing your reality. And this is a video I kind of hesitate to make because as I was talking to her, I kind of know what type of book she was reading because she kept using words like manifestation, vibration, all of these words that are really, really part of the New Age community. And this community tends to believe that your thoughts dictate your reality. And is it true? It is to some degree. However, this is only my belief, so I'm hesitating to say this because this is my belief. I'm a big believer in Michael Singer's theory, the author of The Untethered Soul, where basically all your thoughts do is buffer reality. Now, what does he mean by buffering reality? Real reality, the truth about reality, is very, very uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, if you ever stop and just look at the sky. So if you look at the sky and you look up and you realize how vast space is, you realize how vast the world is, you realize how vast the universe is, you realize that you're on a ball of rock and it's floating through space, following a great big ball of fire in the sky. And the fact that this ball of rock, 1.3 million of them could fit in that ball of fire. 1.3 million Earths fit into the sun. And then you realize that the sun's going somewhere. We're just following along. We're floating through space. We have no idea where we're going. It's actually pretty scary. It's very, very scary to think about. So what your thoughts do, your thoughts just make you feel comfortable with reality. I don't believe they actually influence your outside world. All of your thoughts do is make you feel better on the inside because the truth is reality is very, very uncomfortable for almost all of us. It's very, very scary. Now, when it comes to the law of attraction, I've read these books. I've read The Kabbalion. I've read The Secret. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read majority of them because I was really, really into these books for maybe from 2015 to about 2017. And then what I didn't realize was who these people that write these books, who they actually hang out with. What do I mean by that? The authors of these books, I'm hesitating to say this. The authors of these books, they hang out with people, and I'm going to mention some of the names of the people they hang out with. And these are people, if you ever want to really, 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 really get rich, learn how to sell, learn how to make money, these are names you should study. And I'm going to mention these names. The names are like people like Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, Joe Sugarman, Gary Bencivenga, John Carlton. These are all names that are very, very known in the entrepreneurial, small business, even big time business. Names like Jay Abraham. These are people that come from the direct response marketing world, the copywriting world. What does that mean? They know how to sell. They know how to write words that influence our minds to get us to buy stuff that we don't really need. There's even documentaries out like The Century of the Self. That's a really, really good documentary. It's on YouTube. The Century of the Self. And it's about Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and how they use psychology to influence the masses. These big corporations used Edward Bernays, who's the father of propaganda, to influence us to where we become mind-numbing zombies to where we buy. They understood how to tap into our deeper selves, our shadows, our desires, our fears, and make us move to take action. Now, how did they learn to do this? Basically, they understood what value is. What is value? When you think of value, everybody talks about it, right? You have to sell value. Value basically is you're able to make people's lives better and easier. That's it. You're able to make people's lives more comfortable, more smoother, meaning, you'll have more money, you'll have more sex, you'll have more relationships, your health will be better, and it's going to be easy. So the easiest way to sell something, and I'm going really, really basic here, is there's two key principles: time and effort. If I tell you I could help you lose 20 pounds in 8 weeks, right? That's valuable. 20 pounds in 8 weeks. That's actually a lot. But if I say, hey, I could do the same thing with you, I could help you lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks, which offer has more perceived value? Obviously the 6 weeks. Why? Because it's faster. The same thing with 20 pounds in 4 weeks. It's faster. It's speed. There's more speed, which means it's more valuable. Now, if it's true, this is great, right? The other thing that you could add to it is, how about I could help you lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks without ever going to the gym, without ever dieting. All you have to do is take this pill. Now that's even more valuable. Why is that more valuable? Because now your effort level, there's no effort involved. All I got to do is take a pill. All I have to do is take a pill and I'll lose weight in 4 weeks. And, the ultimate valuable thing is if as soon as you sign the contract, you immediately get the result without ever having, so speed, fast. Like I signed the contract, I buy whatever it is I want to buy, and then all of a sudden I get the result and I don't have to do any effort. That's value. That's perceived value. Does it mean it's true? Probably not. But this is how they get us, right? They always say, oh, fast, easy, effective, whatever. Now, going back to the law of attraction. These people that write these books. And maybe they believe in this stuff, but I know who a lot of them hang out with. I know they hang out with, Gary Halbert's dead, but I know they used to hang out with Gary Halbert. Dan Kennedy's still alive. John Carlton's still alive. I think Joe Sugarman's dead. Gary Bencivenga, Gary Ogilvy, all of these, Claude Hopkins, all of these top-notch copywriters that understands how to influence the mind to get people to move, to get people to buy, right? If you think of the law of attraction, the idea that you just set a goal. So I'm telling you this. You set a goal, and all you have to do is sit on the couch and think about your goal, and which means there's no effort involved. Zero, no effort, and you set the date, and then whatever your goal and desire is, it will just come to you. If you think about it in that terms of value, you'll start to realize what they were selling. Because nobody wants to hear that in order to achieve your goal, let's go back to the 20 pounds in 8 weeks, that you have to go to the gym. You have to go to a place where you're not comfortable. You're going to be sore. You're going to have to give up food. If you're trying to lose weight, you have to go hungry. You're going to be hungry. This is something I used to tell my clients all the time. Well, what if I get hungry? Well, then be hungry. Be uncomfortable. How hard do you think it is to sell that to the masses? It's very, very difficult to sell that to people. Like personal training, when I used to sell personal training, it's one of the hardest things to sell, because to tell people that, you're going to come to the gym, get sweaty, get dirty, be at a place where you feel like everybody's judging you, everybody's looking at you, look at these weird machines that seem complex, don't eat this food, this is the food you love. When Thanksgiving comes about, say no to the pie, you're going to be uncomfortable. So me trying to sell that to people is very, very difficult, versus you lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks, which is fast. 20 pounds in 4 weeks. All you gotta do is take this pill, which means there's barely any effort. That's always going to beat me. That's always going to beat me as a personal trainer. Because why? Because these people, these top-notch copywriters, the Edward Bernays of the world, the propagandists, they understand that the masses is just like a pyramid. The people at the bottom of the pyramid are lazy. They're stuck in a lower level of consciousness, in the animalistic side of the brain, where the animalistic side of the brain, all its focuses on is conserving calories. Because the animalistic side of the brain is only thinking about survival. So what they do is they tap into your survival needs and they say things like, oh, it's going to be easy. It's going to be fast. You're not going to have to do anything. I'm going to hold your hand. All you got to do is take this pill and you'll get the result. You'll get the goal. And it's the same thing, in my opinion, when it comes to the law of attraction or the law of vibration or these things that they talk about, where it's like you could just sit on the couch, use your brain, use your thoughts, which is very difficult, but it could be a little difficult for most people, where you just sit there and you focus on the goal, not have to take any action, and you'll manifest a parking spot, you'll manifest your dream life or your dream partner. Just write down the characters of a partner that you want, and then before you know it, they'll pop up on your doorstep and you'll bump into them, and there's no such thing as accidents, and everything is a synchronicity and numerology and all of this stuff. I'm not saying there's not an element to that, but understand who these authors, and I don't know if the authors today knew who the authors of the past hung out with, understand that they hung out with people like Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, John Carlson. Please, please, please look up these names. I'll send them to you. I'll write them maybe in the comments. If you ask me, hey, spell them out for me. If you want to get rich, if you actually want to make money, if you want to learn how to sell, if you want to learn how to influence, if you want to learn how to move people, if you want to learn how to build a tribe and get people addicted to your stuff. Like, for instance, like in my niche, which is like somatic movement, the top person in my field on social media, she does this very well. I shouldn't have said she, but she does this very well. She's much, 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 much bigger than me. Much bigger than me. But I've paid attention to the way she markets her ideas. One of the things she'll say is, and the only reason why I'm saying this is because the video is about 12 minutes in. I know if 1,000 people view this, maybe 10 people will get to the end. The way she markets her stuff is like, she says things like tiny, lazy movements will help heal your trauma. And then another thing she does really, really well is she helps people throw rocks at their enemies. That's another marketing tactic, where the easiest way to build rapport with people is to attack an enemy. You see this in politics all the time. Trump attacks the left attacks Trump. They never actually discuss policies. They know that by attacking another side taps into that animalistic side of our brain, because the animalistic side of our brain is very, very tribal, which will cause us to feel something, which might actually cause us to move and take action and do what it is that the charismatic leader at the top wants us to do. So the person in my field, who she's very good at this, I've seen posts, and I follow her. I've seen posts where she, attacks yoga. She does it in a subtle way. She attacks therapy. And I actually did this in one post maybe 6 months ago, and it's probably my most controversial post on Instagram. Is like, I basically said, we've been lied to. We don't have to talk about our feelings and talk about this. And if you look at the comments, there's a lot of negativity in the comments, but it got a reaction out of people. And that post actually gained me like 20,000 followers, surprisingly. I don't try to do that anymore because I just don't want to do that. But I understand if I wanted to get bigger, if I wanted to grow, let's say, the platform to over 1 million followers, the fastest way for me to do that is to do these principles. Tell people it's going to be easy, simple. You could be lazy and still heal. You don't have to go through any pain. Versus what I actually teach and what I actually talk about is I say pain is the pathway to freedom. If you have all of these issues inside, you're going to have to experience it, and it's going to suck. Nobody wants to hear that, though. Nobody wants to hear that, though. Who I'm hoping to attract is the people that already tried to do all of the easy stuff and the lazy stuff, and it didn't work for them. And then finally they find my work and they're like, wow, let me actually give this guy a try because he's actually doing his best to be as honest as possible. So, again, going back to the girl, do your thoughts influence reality? To a degree. There is an element where you have to use your thoughts to focus on what it is that you want, because what this does is activate a part of your brain called the reticular activation system, which is basically your selective focus. What does that mean? Is like, what you believe is what you see. You don't actually see what you believe. I'll say it again. What you believe is what you see. You don't actually see reality as it is, because real reality is very, very scary, and our thoughts are meant to buffer reality. Because reality, look at that sky, we have no idea where we are. We're just floating around in space, going places, following a great big ball of fire that we have zero control of what's actually going on. This is why I always talk about accepting reality. People don't want to hear this though. Like, oh my God, what do you mean accept reality? Accept reality. Like this moment right now that I'm experiencing, this planet has been here for about 4.5 billion years. In order for me to exist, my great grandparents had to meet at a certain time to make my great other grandparent, and things had to trickle down in order for this moment to exist for me. And the same thing with the planet Earth. You got hydrogen gases, all of these things going on, all of these elements, all of these atoms and molecules spinning around. They basically say we came from the stars. Things are going on. Things are unfolding that's not in our control. However, what is in our control is how we feel on the inside. And basically what your thoughts do is make you feel comfortable about reality. It buffers reality. It makes you more at ease with reality. A lot of us don't use our thoughts in the right way because a lot of us are not comfortable with how we feel, but we're constantly trying to figure out a way to make ourselves feel better. And one of the things I always say is, just because you're feeling better doesn't mean you're actually getting better. In order for you to actually get better, you have to deal with those issues you have stored inside of you. All right, so to wrap this up, does your thoughts, this is my belief, does your thoughts actually influence the outside world? Maybe a little bit. I know there's been experiments with Dr. Emoto. He was like some Japanese scientist where he like froze water or he froze rice or something, and he like whispered "I love you" to it, and he sent it positive vibrations. I don't know if that's true. It could have been a hoax, but maybe it is true. But I know about those experiments where he froze the water, and the ones he said "I love you" to, when he froze them and he did it for a month, it was like beautiful geometric shapes, versus the one where he said "I hate you" to, they had like nasty things. But for every 100,000 people that buy these books, that buy into the law of attraction, that buy into manifestation, you may get, 10 success stories? And you might be one of them. You may be like, hey, it worked for me. Yeah, but how many people it didn't work for? How many people that actually sat down, wrote out their relationship goals, wrote out their financial goals, and haven't achieved anything? You know, to me, true living is to stop focusing on the self. Like even the self-development world, the world where it's like hustle culture, take action, set boundaries, cut people off, hang out with 5 people that you want to raise your standards. It's like, it's a very, very narcissistic way to live. Self-development. You know, and I was a big believer in self-development from 2010 to 2020. That's all I focused on was the self. And I just found out I became more and more of a narcissist. I just focused on my thoughts, focused on what I wanted. Didn't really care much about other people. And the only reason why I cared about other people is to get what I want. It wasn't pure. And these are my beliefs as far as the last 5 years. It doesn't mean it's true. I could be full of it. But does your thoughts really, really affect reality? I mean, look around, man. All of the crime going around, all of the wars going around, you're telling me these people are just sitting around thinking about it, the innocence? They're just creating vibrations that are going out into the world, and it's causing them to suffer? I mean, I don't think so. I think, some of it has to do with just luck. But I'll stop right there. Let me know what you think. Give me feedback. Peace.